Hello everyone, welcome again, and this is the part 14 of Java Web Application Development series, and let's see how can we insert the data in the real-time expression. And as the last video we have end where we create a JDBC data source connection. So connection is done. Now we need to insert the data from registration page. So we are going to perform the registration operation in the same application. So let's run it. So if I click on the registration, then I'm enter the data, some data here, and the data should be entered into the database. So how this thing will be happen, let's implement this. So the very first I need to create a database. So I just switch to my MySQL, or I create a post here, so you can refer this. So to perform that particular activity, you need to follow some step like design registration page that we already done here, and the next step, create a database and table in MySQL workbench. So this is we are going to perform now. So this is the code for designing. You can also prefer this code if you are not following the video from the first. And now let's create a database here. So directly I can create a database, or I can create database here by this command, by this script. So I just going to copy this script here and switch to my MySQL. So if you want to run any query here, so just click on this SQL plus icon, enter the query and execute it. So now if I'm going to refresh the database, you can see the Java Web project is database is there. Now we need to create a table in this database. So another option that you already seen, like manually we can create a table, otherwise we have a code, just SQL scripts that we can directly run. So let's run this directly, and I'm going to remove this. Okay, so it's going to create a table which is name is user under the Java Web database, which has a field ID, first name, last name, login, password, DOB and mobile. So I'm going to run this. It says there is some error and you have an error expression, check the manual syntax. Okay, if I think I'm gonna copy this, so I have to change this. Yes, yes. So I just change this in a single inverted comma. I think it should work now. Okay, fine. And the ID will now be a string there. So let's use it like this. Okay, other option we have, we can directly create. So we need this table. So just right click on the table, create a table, and the name is user, and we need a ID column name. The first name will be ID. Always keep a ID there, so that it's going to help us, and this ID will be primary key and it should be not null. And the next field we need is first name, so I'm going to enter the F name. It should be work here. I'm going to enter the last name, so last name, then the login ID and password. It should be password, DOB, so I'm going to enter the DOB here. Next thing, mobile, it should be your phone number. It will be your phone number, right? So these are the things that we create. I'm going to just delete this row, it's extra. Okay, now just click on apply and click apply, finish. Now you can see the new table is there with a username. So whatever the data user going to register from the front end or from our registration page, it will insert here in this table. So for that we need to create a bean object for this user. So now we are going to use the bean package, and it's not there yet. So let's create a package name as a bean. So right click on this, create a new package, and the package will be .bean. Uh, Okay, it says it should be in a small letter, so I'm gonna enter Java dev app bean. So you can see new packages there. Now let's create a class here as a user bean. Under this user bean, I'm gonna insert some data. That's beans. Okay, that will work, not an issue. So we have some fields. These are the attributes or column name: the first name, last name, login ID, password, DOB, and mobile number. So DOB is a type of date, so we need to import the util package here. So I'm going to import the util package here. Now we need to create a getter setter. Directly you can copy this code, or I can just right click here and go to source and create a getter setter for these variables. So you can see the option generate getter and setter, and I select all and I create a getter and setter methods here. So whenever we call this user bean object, it will create an object of user, and we can easily set and get the data from this user bean. Now uh, if I move to the user model, so now next thing, bean is done. Now we need to create a model that will be responsible to handle our database operations. So basically in the page of we are using MVC model, so it's a model view controller. So here the model will be responsible to handle all the transaction that going to be communicate with the database. So let's create a user model class under the model package, but until we do not have a model package, so at the very first just create a model package. So I'm going to copy my package name and just create another package here, which will be our model. Let's create a small letter, everything in small as a package name, Java web application. Okay, this model should be in small. Okay, finish. Under this model package, create a user model. So this class will be responsible to handle all the user operations. User model. When I create a class, now indirectly this is going to help us to add the data into the database. So let's create a method in this class that's going to help us to communicate with the database. So I'm going to just copy this code and will explain all the way how it's working. Okay, we need to import some packages, so I just import SQL there. Prepare statement should be there, result set, okay, and the user bean should be bean, and I'm going to import this. So the concept is indirectly we need to add the user. So this is the method under our user model which is going to add the user. User will come in the object form of a user bean. So as we create this bean, we'll set the bean from somewhere when the user send the data from the front end, and the data will handle by the controller. Controller will set the data to this user bean object, and then this method will get as an input that particular user object. Here we have already connection in the JDBC data source that we have done in the last video, and so here we could just call the get connection to create a connection, and it will hold by the connection variable, and we create a prepare statement as we done before. So here we pass a query insert into user values and the question mark. This question mark will be count like number of columns that we have to send. So there is a 7 question mark, so it will send the data here. So what data should be inserted with this statement? So the first statement dot set long will go to the next pk. So what is the next pk? It means we have this primary key here, so we also insert in the first column the primary key. So what we create an method which will return a next primary key, and this is going to select a max id from the user. So whenever we call this method, it will communicate with the database and call the maximum id here. and return the pk plus 1. It means if for example here we have a record with id 1, so it will return id 2. So the next id is going to insert into the table, it will be 2. Similarly, set a string suit at the second question mark, it will send the first name. So where that first name will come, as we already said in the servlet, so it's going to be catch here as a get first name, last name, login id, password. And here we are using we are going to set the date format, data as a date, but data will coming into the string format. So here we are going to convert into the this data into the date. Now uh, the statement is the last one is a mobile number. Now we are going to execute update query. A statement don't execute update query, it means that the statement should be fire, then this method will call and it will return a value integer 1 or 0. If the data is inserted successfully, it will return 1, otherwise it will return um, 0. Let me verify one thing, is what kind of data type we are using in the data as a date. So our DOB type will be date here. So let's move to the database and change it into the, so if you already created the table, easily you can alter it. Right click, alter the table, and we are going to change the data type of this. So this type should be a date, so I'm going to insert it as a date. It should be there. Okay, now it's date type, click on apply. So alter query is going to fire and it's changed now. So here exactly that we are doing, we are going to convert our string date into the date type and we're passing this. Okay, that's it. So whenever we need to insert the data, now the work is very easy. Now we just call this method and send the user object, that user data will be inserted in the database. Let's move to our controller, and we have to create another controller. It should be our register, you can say user CTL. Okay, user CTL is already there, not need to create it. So if you can see, we created this and we have to, oh, okay. So let's move to the user view. So when we are going to submit the data from the front end, it will send the data to the post method. So we are calling here servlet, in which servlet the data should enter. So it should be, what was my package name, is jwa view dot user control, and it should be expression. Okay, so this time the data will hit to the post method. So whenever user is going to submit the button, it will hit to the post method under the user control. So in this user control, it's going to hit to the post method. I'm just confused. Okay, it's fine. We have defined this as a user CTL in a capital letter. Okay, that's not an issue. Now the data will handle by this post method. Now let's see how can we read the data in this post method and process further. So for the reference, I'm gonna copy this code from here and will explain you that in the detail. I guess my mouse is not working properly, but let's make it in a text, and now we can get done. Now the very first line, it's creating object of user win that we create, and the second step we have to read the data from servlet, from JSP. For example, that when the user going to submit the button, it will hit to the user controller and send the first value as a first name. So name of this input field will be, we have to use there. So this is the key, or you can say name of this field, and we are going to catch this field here as a request.get parameter. So from the view part, JSP to servlet, data will come in the form of request, right? So we are going to get request.get parameter first name, similarly request.get parameter last name, request.get parameter login. So what is this first name, login, password? This is the name of our field that we are going to put in our JSP. So this is the last name and login, the password, that's the thing. And now if I talk about why we create this user bean, so this is the user bean that we are going to set the data from this object. So it will be easy, like manually I can set, I can't use every field manually, so I have to create an object. So as I create this object, and this object is going to set as a user dot set first name. So whatever the first name will come from the front end, we have set as a user object. So now just import the data utility. As I told you before, we need to lots of conversation, we need to use lots of conversation. So the data will come into the string form as a DOV from the front end, and it will convert into the data. So we are going to use data utility dot get data, get date. Okay, that's done. Now again we have that user object ready, and now what is the next step? Now we have to move to controller to model. So we have already ready create a model here for the user, and this user is ready to get a add user. So we call that add user method, user model dot add user, and just pass this user object. So user object is gone, it means user have all the property, first name, last name, we already set there and send to the user, and it will return, as I told you before, this method going to return an integer value. So we are going to hold this, value here in a long value I. Now we put a condition, if I is greater than 0, it means send a message, set successfully message, user registered successfully. It means if this I will be 1, then it will send successfully. If it will return 0, then not inserted or something going wrong, and we are going to redirect the data. At the end, after registration, we are going to redirect the data user to on the registration.jsp. In our case, it's not JSP. In our case, it will be let me check here. It will be user view. So what is our user view URL here? So I'm going to use my JWA dot we need to import the database, that package here, JWA view dot user view. So it will redirect on this URL, and this already you know how we implement this. Just remove one extra semicolon. Okay, that's it. Now it will go to this add user, send the data, and return a message. Now if you check the user control, we are going to set a successful message and error message. Somehow we need to show this data at the front end, so we need to handle this here. So that request will come to the controller, and again controller will send the request to JSP, to this JSP user view. So in this user view we have to handle this data. So let's move to the user view and check how can we handle the data here. Let me check the code is available here. No, it should be there. Okay. So I'll just copy this. As you know, we already created in the servlet utility to get error message and the set error message, all the methods are there. So we are indirectly calling servlet utility dot get success method. Here we are going to set the method error message You can see the both operation is set, and here we are going to get it. So I'm just import the servlet package in this JSP. So this is the beauty of JSP. Like in JSP you can um, in JSP you can write the Java code as well. Okay, so get success message. So whatever the response will come from the servlet, the JSP will catch and print the message here. Now like everything is done, I guess. Let's run the code. Okay, one more thing, in the system.properties, make sure the project name, the database name is correct here. So as in my case, it's Java Web, and in your case it should be same. Okay, let's run the application all the way and check if it is working or not. So I click on the registration and set the data like user demo user @123 is it should be like an ID, so I'm going to user@gmail.com. The password is demo@123, the DOB, so I'm going to insert 0 809 let's say 1992, and the mobile number any 10-digit number, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So you can see the message here is user registered successfully. Now check the database and refresh the table, and you can see the data is inserted. We can put some CSS also here, so it will look beautiful. Like let me do that last effort. Okay, like this we can use h2 tag or h3 tag here, and I'm gonna close it. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna put this under the h3 tag, and the same thing we are gonna perform here, and should be h3. See it. And put these messages in h3 tag, so it will be like a bit bold, and put a style there. So style color, and if it's success method, it should be green. And same, just put the style in this heading also. So style color should be red. If there's something wrong, it should be right. So now let's run it again. Okay, it's already running, so just check it now. Submit. You can see it now, and the user data is repeated there. Let's see the second data. Okay, so that's it. By this way you can register the data, and in next video we'll see how can you perform the login operation, and then we'll move to get the data, then we'll perform edit, delete, uploading image on the array, then we'll move to the project explanation, the complete projects. And our main aim to explain the basic things that we are going to perform. So how the basic thing achieve, once you have familiar with this, then we'll move to the understanding of the complete project. Thank you.